Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hello, Caroline. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Hi, Haidar. How are you?
Yes, I'm well. I think if the weather's better, but then I always start by talking about the weather on this podcast every single time. People must be so bored about it. Just keep going
British
on.
Thing.
I am British, and I keep saying this, and I'm proud to be British. And Britain has done so much for me, and it's interesting to know because you work with British doctors.
I do. I work with doctors from all over the world, but mainly at the moment British doctors. Yes, because I am a British doctor myself. It's funny our obsession with the weather.
Well, I think there's a saying somewhere about something like the British Empire was built on something around weather or discussion about weather. I think there's some kind of cliche out there somewhere. I may be wrong. So, Caroline, why the joyful doctor?
Oh, great question. Kind of came out of nowhere. Well, I say that. It came out of years of me being a not very joyful doctor, if I'm honest. I really struggled with my mental health and well-being as a doctor for many years. And I, from that grew an interest in kind of helping other doctors who were struggling. And gradually I just specialised in it more and more. And it got to the point, a year or so ago, when I felt this really strong sense that I really needed to be doing this for a living, to put my money where my mouth is, get the message out there a bit wider, that doctors do struggle and they need help just as much as anybody else. And I took the leap of faith to leave my kind of NHS training job and set up the Joyful Doctor.
And when did you realise that you weren't joyful? When did that coin fall?
I think, looking back, I think probably I had times in my teenage years and early adulthood, through med school when I wasn't joyful, but I didn't really realise it. The first time I was kind of properly aware of really struggling was my first year as a junior doctor. And within weeks, actually, of hitting the wards, I was pretty much broken. I was, really exhausted, burnt out, very scared, very overwhelmed, really feeling like I was the only doctor that didn't know what I was doing, that real imposter syndrome that we hear a lot of doctors share and talk about. So that happened to me very early on in my medical career. And, I was very fortunate. I was really well supported through a lot of those early bumps. But I went on to have significant mental health problems. So I went on to have several episodes of depression. And then later in my 30s, I had some episodes of high mood. So I was re-diagnosed at that point with bipolar disorder. I've also struggled with addiction problems, including to alcohol. Just celebrated 4 years sober, actually.
Congratulations.
So thank you very much, which is just, amazing. And I've had other, like many people, I think it's not commonly known, but about 40% of people with mental health problems will have more than one. So I have had, 3 or 4 along the road. I've learned different things from each time I've struggled, kind of grown and learned as I've gone along, and I'm still learning. I don't consider myself fixed by any means. Actually, I don't think of myself as broken anymore, which is quite nice.
What was the turning point for you? Things that really changed in your life. Was there any particular point in your time?
I think one of the biggest turning points for me was getting well around my addictions, because until then, I was kind of using things quite unhealthily to cope, like a lot of doctors do. So I was using, food and alcohol and relationships and workaholism, all to kind of just get through and to cope with my struggles. And actually, when I started to put those things down, that's when I really started to get real recovery around my mental health and really started to find more joy in my life. Yeah, so that was a big turning point for me. And I think part of that was driven by having my son, because I think that I really wanted to be a good example. I didn't mind being a mum that had mental health problems. I was actually quite proud of that. But I wanted to be a mum that could show him, if you are struggling, there are things you can do and there are ways you can manage it and it's okay. So
why do you say you're proud of your mental health problems?
I guess I'm proud of having survived them and having learned from them and using them in a meaningful way.
So it's kind of retrospectively that you've gone through it and sort of having gone through the difficulties and the problems. I mean, I feel exactly the same. I mean, when I went through my suicidal ideas and severe depression, the last of which was in 2017. Looking back, I keep saying this to other people, it's the best thing that could have happened to me. Because
I see that a lot now. I have a caseload of about 60 doctors now, and I see quite regularly for a wonderful program called the Practitioner Health Program here in the UK. And I hear that all the time. When you're going through it, it feels awful. It's rubbish. You would wish it on your worst enemy. But actually afterwards, without exception, my experience has been that doctors and other high stress professionals that go through something like this really value the experience and come out of it stronger, better, wiser, happier.
Definitely happier, definitely more resilient, because we all go through stressful patches. I went through a super stressful patch yesterday, and in the past that would have lingered on a bit longer because you sort of mull over these stressful patches maybe for days, weeks, months, whatever. But now it's like, it's happened, I've been through it before, and today I feel absolutely fine. And I kind of wear that as a gold star on my chest.
Yes, I love it.
So I go back to work today and I'm like buzzing, and they're thinking, you're crazy, yesterday was like really, really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I still struggle absolutely just as much. I still have really low days. I still get occasional suicidal thoughts. But what happens now is, generally speaking, I pick stuff up much quicker. And I really pay attention to it, and I give myself permission to actually look after myself and to ask for help, which I never used to do. I just used to...
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. We never used to do this, I mean, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I used to just suffer in silence. And I used to just eat, and just be a grumpy old man.
I think food, actually, I think we also, there's quite a bit of focus on things like people, doctors drinking and doing drugs or smoking or having affairs, but actually I think food is a massively under-recognised issue amongst doctors. There's a lot of doctors out there surviving by either just restricting their intake or by comfort eating. It's just one of the many ways in which we just deal with the incredibly difficult jobs that we're facing.
And it's easy to get to, it's cheap, and you're kind of protected as well by society with all this sort of, politically correct language that we can't use as well. He's overweight or she's overweight, and I think that's just making the problem worse. Rather than saying, well, actually, there is help. Is everything okay? I think that's,
I think it's one of those
things.
It's a very visible problem, but it's not talked about. It's the elephant in the room, I guess, for want of a better phrase. And I
think that's going to get worse because when I was in school and I was a fat kid in school, people made sure they told me I was a fat kid, which made me better at talking rather than running.
I think there's a layer of stigma and shame around doctors with weight problems as well, because there is this perception that somehow doctors should be super healthy. It's the same with any mental health problem as well. It's, doctors are perceived to be to have it all together, to be, really wealthy, really happy, 2.4 kids, and, big house in the country kind of thing. And actually, the reality is that most doctors are not living those lives.
I mean, the majority of doctors are very stressed, very unhealthy, and mentally not so healthy either, which is quite a stark statement to make.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if it's the majority or not. Sometimes it feels that way. I think there is some evidence that there are higher rates of mental health problems amongst doctors. We know that doctors find it really difficult to come for help when they are struggling, and they leave it a long time. I think that's true of any high stress professional, though. I think it is that suffering on in silence and excuse me.
But the good news is that if they do seek for help, they do very well. That's what the stats say as well, don't they?
They do. They have amazing rates of recovery. The rates of recovery seen in doctors' health services are phenomenal compared to the general population. They have at the practitioner health program, they have kind of absence rates around drug and alcohol problems of about 80% at 5 years, which is unheard of. They do very, very well. They have a lot of positive things going for them. A lot of really strong personal characteristics, often a lot of social support, and often a really meaningful job to go back to. At the end of the day, we're very privileged working in healthcare that what we do is it brings us meaning and joy. And if it's done in a bearable way, I think part of the problem at the moment is that a lot of doctors are doing a job they love, but they can't do it in a way that they love because they're just too busy, too overwhelmed, too tired, too much being asked, with too few resources. Which
is unlikely to change for quite some time.
Which is why I think we're really focusing in doctors' health circles on helping individuals and groups of doctors to set their boundaries and to look after themselves a bit better in what are unmanageable circumstances.
Yeah. It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
It's not
easy.
It's
a complex problem with, complex solutions. Although some of it's really simple. I don't know if you found that, but certainly in my journey, the solutions for me were very simple. I needed to talk about what was going on and be honest. I needed to ask for help. I needed to give myself permission to do what I really love to do. It's not, it's not big things, not easy things, but quite simple things.
I mean, the solutions are simple, but the environment that we're in is very complex. That's what I meant.
Yes.
That the environment and the whole system that doctors are in is a very complicated system.
Yeah.
And I think the onus is on the individual rather than on changing the system, and that's something that I'm a champion of. Whereas there are other doctors who bang their heads on changing the system, which is very complicated, very complex, very, there's a lot of cogs in the system, and I don't think there's going to be much joy with that. And I think the onus is on the individual to sort of influence themselves, and that will cascade into influencing people around them, and that will eventually change the system. And I think it's much, quicker and more effective that way.
I was watching a program the other day. There was a quote that really caught my imagination. Something about change coming in small increments over time, and just having to kind of chip away. I think there are different levels at which solutions could be put in place, and I do think the organisations have a responsibility to look at how they can improve things. But I agree. While you're at the same time, I think individuals need to think, well, what can I do? How can I survive this or make choices that are positive for me?
And they are simple things, whether it's having an extra hour of sleep or doing, just walking an extra 30 minutes outdoors or doing something that you enjoy without being interrupted, even for just half an hour a day. Some really simple steps that are quite easy and straightforward that does make a massive difference over a long period of time. Yeah,
huge. I've had a couple of patients recently, doctor patients, who have said to me it's like they're getting their life back.
Mm.
And essentially what's happened is they've just been so buried in their work for so long that they've just lost touch with all the other stuff that goes on in their life. And then they get to a point of burnout or depression, or they have to go take some time off. And then only then can they start to get the life back, like go for that walk for half an hour, or, spend that time with their family, or, pick up that hobby that they've let go for years. And it's really moving actually to see these people kind of coming back to life, rediscovering that they're more than just a doctor, they're more than just their job. They're a whole person living in a world where other stuff is going on.
Yeah, and the world's just an amazing place. There's just so much stuff going on around the world, and you just literally have to stop and just look somewhere else, and then you just see all that amazing things that just going on.
But it's very hard to do that when you're in the middle of the system, and you're in the middle of the overwhelm, I think.
And this is where this is where the coach comes in, this is where the trainer comes in, and just someone just to sort of put a hand on their shoulder and say, look, have a look over here. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's that power as well in that person giving themselves permission to come, once a week or whatever it might be. Maybe you meet them online, but to give themselves that space to think about their lives like that, it's incredibly powerful.
And and coming from another human being to say, yes, you have permission, that's powerful. Because sometimes our minds can give us all kinds of funny.
Yeah. And I think actually it's powerful coming from another person that's been where you've been as well. So we've both been, stressed out doctors, stressed out high stress professionals. And it's, we get it. We know how hard it is to be on that side of it, and what it takes to step over onto the other side.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite important, because I think often what I find is doctors won't take it from people that haven't been there.
Yeah.
So they won't believe it. They'll have, for months and months, they'll have their wife or their husband or their friends telling them, look, you need to slow down, or you need to stop, or what about taking some time off? What about changing your job? But it's not until they kind of really reach breaking point and then hear it from someone that's been there that they can kind of really hear it often.
Yeah, it is powerful. I mean, that's something that I realised when I wrote my book, is just people reading the book and say, oh my God, I've been through exactly the same thing as you described in your book. And it just allows them to sort of stop and take notice. Working
on my book at the moment, I really hope it has the same effect. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I mean, it's stories. That's what it's about, and stories are really powerful.
Yeah, and being human, I think, just showing that vulnerability.
It's difficult.
Yeah, right.
Which is weird, isn't it? I mean, we are human, and yet we're kind of not being human, if you know what I mean. We're sort of just busy being robots in our own worlds, our own programs.
Had to hold on to really hard with the Joyful Doctor is, I'm not out there giving a message that you can be happy all the time at all, because actually that isn't life, that isn't reality, it's not human. Human experience is a whole range of emotions, ups and downs, good days, bad days, and it's something I really try to put across, that in my messages, that's okay. Actually, you just can't be happy all the time. You can't be striving for this perfect life and getting it all right, and I think that's something we particularly struggle with as doctors. I think we often think there is a way to do things, or a way to be, or a way our lives should look, and the reality is they don't. They look as messy and as difficult as anybody else's lives, right? But actually, when you can let go of that perfect ideal, you can then really start to find the joy.
So it's that being, isn't it?
Joy in the little moments, and in the reality and the acceptance of
I mean, whenever I let go, it is very joyful, for sure. Just that sort of pressure coming off your shoulders and head, and just relaxing everything. Joyful is a very a very being kind of sense.
Yeah, it's funny. People think read different meanings into the word joyful. I've discovered being the joyful doctor. So for some people, it's kind of a very excitable, happy state of kind of celebration and, jumping up and down. For others, it's a much more calm and serene, peaceful acceptance. And I think for me, it's a bit of both, and it's different things on different days. And to be honest, we were just thinking, I said me and my partner and my friends, we were just sort of mulling around ideas, and it was things like the happy doctor and the whatever. It just popped into our heads one day and just seemed to fit, and people seem to like it and identify with it. So
yeah, I mean, it's whatever flows for you, isn't it, personally? If that's what's flowing for you, and that's what's feels good for you and right for you, and just in the moment and being present. I mean, for me, it's sort of having those aha moments, and having that sort of sparkle being reignited and sort of flame getting stronger. That's what the third eye is about, opening the third eye. And, and that's what buzzes me, gives me the buzz. Yeah,
I always think of the phoenix when you talk like that, the kind of rising from the ashes and the positivity that comes out of the negative experience. But yeah, for me, I'd noticed that the world of sort of doctors' well-being was growing, and there was more and more chat about it, and more people getting involved, and there's a bit of this sort of groundswell towards helping doctors to deal with some of the significant problems they were going through. But a lot of it was focused on the negative. A lot of it was focused on burnout and stress and struggle and all of that sort of stuff. And I actually just wanted to change that narrative slightly and just say, hey, it's okay, to acknowledge that those things are going on, absolutely, and to share about those and to get the help we need for those and all of that, which is a big part of what I do. But also it can be about something positive. Actually, we can perhaps bring ourselves back to a place where life can be fun again, joyful. And whether that means staying in medicine or not, I definitely don't try to persuade anybody to do anything in particular. I think doctors are incredibly wonderful and creative, talented, capable people, and can do anything, any number of things. So just wanted to bring a bit more of that sort of that positive shift back into the narrative around doctors' well-being.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's it's great that you're around. Absolutely. We need that narrative. We need to have some fun in our profession, essentially.
Yes.
And in any profession, any high stake professional career, we need to bring the fun back into it, whether you're a lawyer or a banker or a politician or a diplomat or whatever. Bringing fun into those professions. It just makes things much better in life, and people just perform better and are more productive, and the people that work under them just sort of enjoy coming to work, which is what it's all about.
Absolutely, yeah. We have a growing team of people at Team Joy, and it's all about fun working for us. We have like mandatory awful Christmas jumpers at Christmas time.
Oh dear,
have to wear. I know. And all sorts of silly things throughout.
And it's about laughter, isn't it? It's about laughter. It's about lightheartedness, and I think if we can bring that in as a kind of a mandatory requirement for work, I think it's only a good thing.
Yeah, and that's got lost somewhere along the way, because medicine, when you think about it, it's all about pain and distress, isn't it? And that's kind of hard enough as it is, and I think it's important that we remember it's also about life and relieving pain and suffering and the joy, of childbirth and of giving someone their freedom back by fixing a physical problem or whatever it might be. But just it's as much about the good as it is about the bad. And
excellent. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. How can people get hold of you? What's the best way?
So they can go along to joyfuldoctor.com can email us at teamjoy@joyfuldoctor.com, and we're across all the social media sites, so Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, with just search the Joyful Doctor, you'll find us. We're everywhere.
Excellent. And what's your last advice to sort of people who are struggling today and listening to this, Caroline?
Oh, please just get in touch with somebody. It's okay. It's okay. Whatever it is you're going through, whatever it is you're thinking, I promise you it's okay and it will get better. Just get in touch with somebody. There's help out there. There's a whole list of free resources for doctors and medical students on our website at joyfuldoctor.com. Have a little scan down that. Get in touch with us if you need to. Happy to signpost you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Haidar.
Thanks for listening to this installment of the Surgical Spirit podcast. For all the latest in the world of surgical spirit, don't forget to follow on Twitter at The Third Eye Doc, and catch me on Facebook at the page The Third Eye Doctor. You can visit the website at www.thethirdeeyedoctor.co.uk for more information on the work that I do. And please send us feedback and questions and suggestions for the podcast. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. I've been Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, and I'll see you next time.